Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 We're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, and maybe some of you can do some of the readings. People have the book. We want to just read the English and the words.
Yeah, usually we only read one. The citizens said, "O Lord, you are worshipped by all the demigods like Brahma, the four sanas, and even the kings of heaven. You are the ultimate rest for those who are really aspiring to achieve the highest benefit of life. You are the supreme transcendental Lord, and an inevitable time cannot exert its influence upon you."
O Creator of the universe, you are our Mother, well-wisher, Lord, Father, spiritual master, and worshipful deity. By following in your footsteps, we have become successful in every respect. We pray, therefore, that you continue to bless us with your mercy.
Oh, it is all good luck that we have come again today under your protection, by your presence. For your Lordship rarely visits even the denizens of heaven. Now it is possible for us to look into your smiling face, which is full of affectionate glances. We can now see your transcendental form, full of all auspiciousness.
O lotus-eyed Lord, whenever you go away to Mathura, Vrindavan, or Hastinapur to meet your friends and relatives, every moment of your absence seems like millions of years. O infallible one, at that time our eyes become useless, as if bereft of sun.
O Master, if you live abroad all the time, then we cannot look at your attractive face, whose smiles vanquish all our sufferings. How can we exist without your presence? Upon hearing their speeches, the Lord, who is very kind to the citizens and the devotees, entered the city of Radhika and acknowledged all their greetings by casting his transcendental glance over them.
As Bhogavati, the capital of Nagaloka, is protected by the Nagas,
Now we're going to go to 19.
You're also great on that. Oh, go ahead.
at the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads.
Expert dramaticists, artists, dancers, singers, historians, genealogists, and learned speakers all gave their respective contributions, being inspired by the superhuman pastimes of the Lord. Thus they proceeded on and on.
Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all others who came to receive and welcome him.
The Almighty Lord greeted everyone present by bowing his head, exchanging greetings, embracing, shaking hands, looking and smiling, giving assurances, and awarding benedictions, even to the lowest in rank.
Personally, entered the city, accompanied by elderly relatives and invalid commoners, with their offering and singing the glories of the Lord. Others also praised the glories. Yeah, can somebody read that? I'm not a Sanskrit expert.
Katham tvayam natha shiroshite tvayi prasana drishtya kila tapashoshanam jivemate sundaraha sashobhitam apashyamana vadana manoharam.
Prasana Drishtaya Kilatapasho Divemate Sundara Asa Sovitam Abha Yamana Varana Manoharam
Tatam vayamna tachirosite tvayi. Prasana dristya kilatapashoshanam. Jivhe mete sundara hapsa shovitam. Hapasyamana varanam manoharam.
Namo Vishnu Padaya, Vishnu Style Ventilation, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Brahmani Charming, help and treat this chat, us in the chat, torn between 3 verses, but this verse. Oh, Master, if you live abroad all the time, then you cannot look at the attractive face whose smiles vanquish all our sufferings. How can we exist without your presence? Upon hearing your speeches, the Lord, who is very kind to the citizens and the devotees, entered the city of Dwarka and acknowledged all their greetings by casting his transcendental glance over them. Does somebody want to read the quote over?
Lord Krishna's attraction is so powerful that once being attracted by him, one cannot tolerate separation from him. Why is this so? Because we are all eternally related with him, as the sun rays are eternally related with the sun disk. The sun rays are molecular parts of the solar radiation. Thus, the sun rays and the sun cannot be separated. The separation by the cloud is temporary and artificial, and as soon as the cloud is cleared, the sun rays again display their natural effulgence in the presence of the sun. Similarly, the living entities who are molecular parts of the whole spirit are separated from the Lord by the artificial covering of Maya, illusory energy. This illusory energy, or the curtain of Maya, has to be removed, and when it is so done, the living entity can see the Lord face to face, and all his miseries are at once removed. Every one of us wants to remove the miseries of life, but we do not know how to do it. The solution is given here, and it rests on us to assimilate it or not.
So, I was torn between a number of different verses. The one verse where it says that Krishna is our mother and our father and friend, and the verse where it said, when Krishna was greeting everyone, he specifically acknowledged everyone and gave due honor and respect. And in one of the purports, Prabhupada's talking about how Krishna is a person. So now here we get the demigods are saying, oh my gosh, I want to see you, and then we're separated from you, and then we don't know how to relate to you. When you leave us, we feel your absence. And here we are, parts and parcels of Krishna, and we're in this material world, covered by this cloud of the illusory energy. And it's a thick cloud, and actually there's layers to the material energy. 24 layers, in fact. And and we're trying to get back
And Prabhupada says in one of his, in the Happening album, in the very, very early days, he said that Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. And here in the purport, Prabhupada's talking about the coverings, how we're all sparks. We're all beings of light and consciousness. And we have that potency minutely, but we have that potency from Krishna. And right now, we're covered. And a lot of times we can't feel Krishna or connect to Krishna, even though Krishna is totally personal and totally available all the time. Now we're taught that by chanting the holy names, that we can connect to Krishna. And yet, this world is so overwhelming. And there's so much energy and stimulation. And our minds are so busy that it's really hard for us to even connect to the whole sometimes, maybe many times. For myself, I've found that talking to Krishna as a person, like a prayer, saying a prayer, Krishna's in our heart, Krishna's in the deity form. However, Krishna in our heart goes with us wherever we go. He goes to the bathroom with us. He's there when we're depressed and when we're struggling and when we're confused. And he's there with us when things are going well. So Krishna's in our heart, always with us. And he's never separated in one sense. So what is it that separates us besides all the 24 hours? What separates us from that connection? Use that one because we use that one a lot, and then we feel that we're offensive or they're offensive, and then we're judging who's offensive and who's not offensive, and that tends to come. That could be something. Go ahead.
We want to be the owner, controller, and enjoyer.
Yes, well, we feel that we have to be the owner, controller, because we don't know who we are. And that's very disconcerting. And then we grab our mind and try to figure everything out, and we forget that Krishna's in our hearts. Go ahead.
Parties.
Upadis. I like that one. I mean, not that I didn't like the other ones. What's that? Upadi is a misidentification. And so here the Prabhupada does talk about we're covered by misidentifications. So because we don't know who we are, like he said, we're trying to control. Because we don't know who we really are, we try to control, try to do something to know what's going on and what I should do. And so we grasp for identification with some kind of an identity. And it happens to generally be false ego identifications, which are helpful because if you don't know who you are, it's better to have some identity than no identity, because you can't function with no identity, you're just a vegetable. So we do get some identity. And the problem is not that we have some identity. The problem is when we really think that's who I am, and we really believe that's who I am, and we really believe that you saying something to me is really going to hurt me. false identification, and that I need to retaliate and make an offense against you. All that is based on the false identification with those ego identities, and there's more than one. Many layers of ego identity, and so it's a lot to sort out because we don't know who we are. However, you have all come to the shelter of Krishna consciousness. So you're coming and saying, I want to connect to Krishna. I want to connect to Krishna. So what is it that keeps us from connecting to Krishna? It's our consciousness. I'm sorry. But we think so. Yes, but that's part of our consciousness. So all of these things that were said are part of our consciousness. That people can make offenses or that I make offenses, that's part of our consciousness. That I'm the controller, that's part of my consciousness. That I'm identifying with my bodies and what did you say? Not being willing to listen, that's part of our consciousness. So coming to Krishna consciousness, we're here to develop our consciousness and to be even at least conscious of when we're not conscious. That's the beginning. And so what I've found that has helped me a lot in my spiritual life is talking to Krishna and approaching Krishna. I was often, for 10 years, put onto a parking lot by myself for 6 or more hours, trying to manage who to talk to, what to do, and if the situation changed and it's unfavorable, then what do I do? And I often found myself saying, now what do I do? Now what do I do? Now what do I do? Because there were cell phones, you kind of learn by experience, and this helped me to establish a relationship with Krishna in my heart. And Krishna is there to encourage us and to empower us, and he wants us to remove the layers. He wants to help us. But sometimes we're in this thing that, oh, I'm not a pure devotee. I can't see Krishna. Who am I to talk to Krishna? Who am I not to talk to Krishna? I'm a part of Krishna. He made me. And he wants me to talk to him. Even if maybe my prayers aren't perfect, he's not attached to perfect prayers. Really, when Lord Brahma was saying all his prayers to Krishna after he had stolen the cows, Krishna was like, okay, when I need to be done, I want to go play with my friends. It's like, he appreciated the prayers. But the flowery words of perfect prayers are not what attracts Krishna. It's the heart that attracts Krishna. And so, Prabhupada says, everyone wants to remove the miseries of life, but we do not know how to do it. The solution is given here, and it rests on us to assimilate it or not. And so, there's actually only one moment we have control over. What moment is that? Right now, present moment. So Krishna does give us a little control. We're mini controllers, we're co-creators. But we can't control all of this. We can hardly manage this. And whatever goes on here, that's kind of out of our reach unless we pay attention and eat healthily. But we can manage the present moment by being, what would you say? Present, yes. What's the quality of being present? Aware, conscious, yeah. Attentive, yes. What else? Anything else? Got most of them. Now, you want to be attentive, aware, conscious, present, in the midst of like all this energy, and a lot of the energy we can't see. You know, we're in a room here, all of you have energy. Some people are really sensitive and they can feel all that. And then they feel their energy. And then they think about the things they have to do. How am I present? So being aware, being present, being conscious, being attentive. It's a practice. Now, a really great time to practice is during japa. Because technically, we're not supposed to be doing anything else. So, depending on our schedule, we may have busy schedules, but if we can at least carve out some time that we're just sitting with the holy name, and we can practice being attentive and present and noticing where our mind goes and saying, okay, back, see where it goes and saying, not right now, later. And if it's too demanding, write it down. I wrote it down now, my dear mind. I wrote it down. We're not going to forget it, but we're going to do it later. We're just being attentive and practicing that during japa. That gets our muscles of attention, attentiveness, awareness, consciousness, being present. It starts to strengthen those muscles. And practice it. Sometimes when we're by ourselves and we don't know what to do, we need to be present to Krishna in our heart and call out to Krishna, Krishna, I don't know what to do. Please help me. We're not to ask Krishna for help. Sometimes we say, oh, we should only ask Krishna, how can I serve you? It's okay to ask Krishna for help. He wants to help us. He's our loving father and mother. He wants to help us. And when we approach him asking for help, he's happy about it. Even if our prayers are not perfect, he doesn't expect our prayers to be perfect. He just wants our soul self to cry out to him. So, again, Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. Now, I know when I came to Krishna consciousness, and I think many of us do this, we don't like all the things that are there, and so we're trying to paste Krishna consciousness on top of all of our conditionings and all that stuff, and we try to push our conditionings, emotions, anything that doesn't look perfect. And we try to push them down and stick Krishna consciousness on top of it. Now, I used super glue, and I did that for 27 years, and it didn't work. And so here Prabhupada talks about, you know, we're covered. Molecular parts in the illusory energy needs to be removed. And so Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition. It's about removing the layers of unconsciousness, removing beliefs, removing the attachments we have to who we think we are, or who we believe we are that we wish we weren't, and all those attachments which just make life really complicated. Then we're trying to do, how should act, what should I say, rather than just be able to be present. So, I said a lot. I'm just wondering about what you all felt, thought, or heard. Carly and then Kunti. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart. You were talking about how you were in the parking lot, and while you were in the parking lot, you were asking questions. What do I do now? And that reminded me of an experience that I've had recently. Yeah, it's helped me strengthen my intuition with that question alone. And that question of like, okay, now what? Like, what else do you have to say? Like, I'm hearing like, what now, right? So I really appreciate your point on that.
And we direct it to Krishna.
Yeah,
Like, Krishna, now what do I do? Krishna. We're calling out to Krishna, and that moment is a connection. Go ahead.
I think that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I appreciate your point of that we have to add Krishna's name in there.
Yeah.
That's nice. So thank you.
Yeah. And in the Bible it says, "Ask and ye shall receive; knock and the door will be opened." And so really, we want to be curious rather than trying to control or figure it all out. Just be curious. Okay, Krishna, what do you want right now? Like, what should I say to all these people? What do they want to hear? What would be helpful? And asking those questions opens us up to the magic of Krishna. Now, there was so much Krishna magic in the early days, and you know why that was? Because we didn't know anything. And sometimes when we know too much, our knowing gets in the way of our growing. And so, what do I know? I don't know if I'm going to fall and hurt my leg this week. Right? You didn't know that, right? Yeah, exactly. I didn't know, that I was going to be giving class this morning until a couple of days ago. So being curious really opens us up to Krishna's magic, opens us up to the ability to connect to Krishna in the moments of our life. So go ahead.
When our
Misidentifications. Yes,
ego
that's a big word.
feels hurt by somebody, why do we want them to feel hurt?
Well, when we carry a lot of pain inside, a lot of our pain is from the past lives, childhood, and we're pretty frustrated with ourselves too. We're pretty angry at ourselves because we are in this mess. That's something to do with that. So there's a lot of frustration and anger inside of us. So if you have like a boil or a wound, and someone touches that wound, ouch, you hurt me. You want to push them away, right? So that's the same for emotional wounds. When someone touches a spot that we haven't sore, healed, that we haven't looked at, that's in our unconscious, that we touch it, kind of sometimes we want to react back. It's a protective mechanism. You could be curious about it. Go ahead.
Because I had a realization as you were saying this, as you were saying, you have like a physical wound, and you're pushing them away because they've hurt you. But the specific aspect I was mentioning was that it's not only you're pushing them away, it's that you want to hurt them back. And so I was like, why is this? But as you were talking, I was like, oh, you want to hurt them back because you want them to understand the pain that you just felt. So what you're looking for is actually compassion.
Yes, compassion, understanding. However, because we don't even know what's going on a lot of times inside of us and in our unconscious, we can't express clearly to others, hey, by the way, I have a little sore, happened to touch that. Probably didn't know I had a wound there, but I do have a wound there, and if it's a good friend, maybe you could say, make note, I have a wound there, I haven't healed. But we don't know we have wounds. We don't know what our needs are. We don't even know sometimes how we feel. And we expect others to understand. And we have not expressed it to them. So, self-awareness, self-realization, we can be aware and understand ourselves. We can function a lot better in this world and not expect everybody to understand us. When they don't even understand them, how are they going to understand me? And I don't understand me. How do I expect them to understand? Does that make sense? Is that okay, Quentin? I can't see if you're saying yes or no.
Yeah, I'm
More
saying
than
yes.
I'm saying yes. My eyes, when it's light in my eyes, I can't see your face. Okay, so go ahead. And then we'll hear from some of the men.
So, something that you, I'm so appreciative. This is very relevant to my current situation. And you were talking about how, what this is all about is about removing the layers of consciousness, false belief, attachments that make life complicated. And something that I've been pondering lately is, what is the role of systems? Everything is Krishna, everything comes through him. He's a part of everything. But I'm always sort of curious about what are the roles of systems that are outside of the canon of Krishna consciousness, like utilizing those kinds of systems to assist with this.
Those are Krishna systems. I mean, we think we got this whole big internet thing going on here. Where did that internet energy come from? How am I talking on this thing to somebody in India? That's Krishna's design. He designed that energy that it can transport. I don't exactly know the science of how it happens, but that energy can. They've just discovered Krishna's design, and then they name it, and then they monopolize it. It's Krishna's design. He's the one who created it. So we want to utilize the systems, and we want to be careful that we're using systems and not abusing systems. Even we don't want to abuse scripture. We don't want to misuse it. We want to use it. Okay, is that good? Okay, so any men, I want to hear from the men. Go ahead.
In building a relationship with Krishna in the heart, and having that personal connection, I so often feel that the mind is just constantly sabotaging. Any little bit of control that's titrated off, or any bit of peace, new peace that is felt, it's just absolutely not. And so the mind feels like it's just constantly trying to attack.
Okay.
And so how does one protect that relationship, protect the heart? Because it feels so tender, and at this stage of Krishna consciousness that I'm presently in, very new, and so I constantly feel like I'm hanging on by a thread, because the mind does not let that there is independence being shattered.
So I want to ask a question to all of you. How many of you think your mind is your worst enemy? Sometimes. How does it feel to live with your worst enemy 24/7? Horrible. Okay. So how could we make our mind our friend? Our mind is a mechanism that Krishna created to help us. It gets carried away because it doesn't know exactly who the boss is, and it thinks our false ego voices are the boss. And it's just trying to protect us from all the things that happened in our past life, in our childhood, and it's just, no, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And it's the voice of our parents, it's the voice of our teachers, it's the voice of the things we decided in our last life about life. It's just, and the repetitive voices, by the way, are the mind. Now, the intuition is more like the soul, but the mind will beat down the intuition. No, you can't do that. No, they say you can't do. No, you can't do that. You can't do it that way. No, don't do that. No, that person's going to hurt you. So so what we can do is we can ask the mind questions, and it can start to answer. My dear mind, I know you're trying to help me, my dear mind. I want to chant right now. What might help me to focus on my chanting? Ask your mind. It'll come up with some good ideas, and then you can put those into place. I have a whole way of how I focus on my japa because I have attention deficit disorder. So when you ask your mind questions that you want the answers to, you're directing the mind, you're managing the mind. You're not letting the mind just run the show. Now, my mind still tries to run the show. I'm chanting japa and it's telling me about something I got to do 6 months down the road in the garden. I'm like, okay, my dear mind, that's 6 months away. We'll talk about that later. Right now, how can you help me to focus? What could I do? Just ask it like a friend. Try it on. It wants to help. It's just kind of like a kid trying to help. I'll help with the dishes. Crash. Little kid. I'll get the toilet paper. Oh, it's all over the floor. It's trying to help, but you need to direct it and manage it like you manage a child. When a child's frustrated, okay, well, what could we do now? What do you want to do? What could we do now that would work? It's a practice too, like an ongoing practice, like for the rest of our life. Yeah, but the more you practice, it's easier, and your relationship becomes a little bit more cordial. And you can say, no, I want to listen to my intuition. That voice in my heart is telling me something. Because if you resist your mind and fight your mind, what do you think it does? It does. It fights back. What you resist persists. If you have a person that you're working with, you're always resisting them and you're always telling them to be quiet and stop it, they react back. So the way we relate to our mind has a lot to do with the way it relates to us. And if we're relating with it like an enemy, it becomes our enemy. And if we relate to it, okay, I know you're trying to help me. Could we focus on this? What might I do for this? We just direct it a little bit. And you can even ask your mind to look at your mind. I do mind what am I thinking right now that's causing me so much disturbance? It'll come up with the answer. It can help you. You can treat it with a little kindness and compassion. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other men? Go ahead, Nate. Gosh, we got 1 minute left. Okay. All right. We've got 5 minutes left, and then you're next.
You're talking about this listening to our intuition and not letting it up. But I've seen people do really stupid things on their intuition before. And so I don't really trust that. And I don't always like when people say, like my dad always told me, never believe anyone who says like God told them something.
Right,
and I still don't.
Okay,
as a
right.
theist.
right.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say God told me, unless you got it directly from the deities. However, intuitions are like little promptings, and they're so quick and they're so fast. We don't notice how much Super Soul is trying to guide us. Don't go that way, go that way. I mean, he's really protecting us a lot, and we don't notice it that much. Our intuition is more like our like a prodding from our heart. So you don't necessarily have to like say that that's the absolute truth, but you could just be curious about it. Well, would it hurt if I did that? Can I be open to that? Is that something that maybe I could try on? Because if you look at life like, if I do that, then oh my gosh, all this is going to happen. But you could try things on, and then if they don't work, then don't do it anymore. You can learn by trial and error. It's okay to learn by trial and error. A lot of what we do learn is by trial and error. So you test it, and you don't say absolutely not or absolutely yes. You test it. You're curious about it. That's interesting. I wanted to get a ticket to India this year. And when I tried to get it in March, because I thought I would get a cheap ticket, and it was like more expensive than ever. So I paused. And then as the year went on, there was something telling me, like, maybe don't go to India this year. There were a lot of different reasons my mind was giving me, but I was just sensing it. And then and I didn't go. And there were a lot of things that I had to tend to here that I wouldn't have been able to tend to had I didn't. So you just try it on. And if you missed an opportunity to go to India, you missed an opportunity to go to India. You don't make it like God told me, but let's see. Let me try it on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try it on. Don't like immediately reject it, but don't think that, oh yes, God told me I need to do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's still just like I guess it's not really tell you whether it's your condition.
I'll tell you how you can tell your conditioning. The voices of your conditioning are very repetitive. They'll say the same thing in different forms. Don't trust that person. Oh, I don't know about it. It'll just say the same thing in different ways. The voice of intuition is like, wow, I never thought that before. What is that? It'll be something usually fresh, not repetitive for sure. If it's repetitive, you can be assured it's the mind repeating the programming from the past. Okay, and it's a practice. But I don't call it intuition. I just like notice things. And that's an interesting thought. I haven't had that before. Not going to India. So like that. Please.
So everybody can get to their breakfast. By the way, thank you. This was a wonderful class. Very
Thank you. It was
refreshing
wonderful
and
to be with all of
inspiring.
you.
To remember that everything in the material world is actually designed to make us forget, and so that there's nothing really to fix. We're always trying to fix ourselves, and actually the material, including our subtle body, the mind and intelligence and the senses, are all working flawlessly.
Yes.
But everything finds its perfect order in Krishna and actually becomes no longer material. So if we can learn the art of constantly opening our heart, learning how to open our heart to Krishna, and just continuously, there doesn't even need to be any words to it.
Right.
If it helps you, put some words to it. But open your heart to Krishna, open and depend on his help.
Yes.
And this will take the disorder of your mind and bring it into order.
Yes.
And so it really comes down to the relationship. In Krishna, everything comes into order and perfection.
Yes. 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 Everything can be used.
Yes.
In Krishna's service, the mind, the body, everything can be used.
But we're always trying to do it ourselves.
Yes.
And we find that the hamster wheel just keeps
Absolutely.
the train keeps on rolling down the tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And we resist our mind and our body a lot, and that takes a lot of energy. That resistance drains us. It's like an app running in the background of our phones. And so when we're a little bit more open and curious, Krishna, good, I didn't expect that. What do you got in mind here, Krishna? And just a little open, even if there's a tad of resistance there, but we're willing. Yeah, go ahead.
Early on, what I found that really helped me is I started to, and I learned this from my spiritual master, I started to, in my own words, open my heart to him and say, I can't do this without you. And I learned how to constantly do that. So when I was feeling a little agitated or off, I would turn to Krishna and say, I can't do this without you. I can't do this without you. And it worked.
Yes, yes. He wants to help us.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we just
it doesn't have to
figure
be
it out ourselves,
complicated.
and we don't call out to him like Draupadi.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden we seem to know intuitively what's next. What do I do? What's my next step?
Yes, yes. What's my next step? Because we're open. Our knowing gets in the way of our growing. If we're not open, we can't see even, the next step. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you
for that. That was very validating. I'm not the only one. So it's time for breakfast. Thank you so much for your time, your attention, your contributions, and everything like that. I did bring some of my books that I wrote about the mind and the false ego and about the bodies and things like that. So all my mistakes in these books, if anybody's interested. I'm here after class. Thank you so much. Vanchikapatubhischa, Pipasindhibhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Krishna.